Okay, we've all been there, right? You've got that one process at work that's just completely broken. You know the one. It's way too slow, it's costing a fortune, or maybe it's constantly kicking out errors that somebody else has to go and fix. You just know it could be better, but where do you even begin? All right, let's get into it. It's a super frustrating but very real situation. Sometimes a fix, even with the best intentions, just completely backfires. It ends up creating a whole bunch of new problems or somehow makes the original one even worse. So that brings up a really important question. Why is it that some attempts to fix a process lead to this amazing breakthrough, while others they just lead to a breakdown? The answer, as it turns out, really isn't about getting lucky or having some brilliant idea pop into your head in the shower. The most successful improvements, the ones that stick, they come from a really disciplined, data-driven approach. It's all about having a system, a kind of roadmap that guides you from here's the problem all the way to here's the permanent solution. And that system? Well, one of the most powerful ones out there is called DMAIC. That's DMAIC. It stands for Define, Measure, Analyze, Improve, and Control. I want you to think of it like a detective's playbook for business processes. Seriously, first you define the crime, then you measure all the evidence. You analyze the clues to find the real root cause. And only then, after you've done all that homework, do you move on to improve the situation and control the scene so it never ever happens again. And today, we're zeroing in on that critical fourth step, the improve phase. But before we can jump into making things better, you have to understand what comes right before it, the analyze phase. That's all about the investigation. It's where your team digs into the data to find the smoking gun, the actual validated root cause of the problem. You don't guess, you don't assume, you prove it with data. And here's the thing. After all that brilliant detective work, you found the culprit. That's huge. But that's not the end of the story. Not even close. Knowing why something is broken is absolutely critical. But just knowing doesn't actually fix anything. Now comes the part where you have to take that insight and turn it into real-world action. And that brings us to the main event, the improve phase. The key insight here is that this phase is so much more than just brainstorming. It's a rigorous, almost scientific method of identifying, testing, and then implementing solutions that are directly aimed at the root causes you just found. It's the moment where that data-driven insight finally becomes a real, tangible fix. So how does this actually work in practice? Well, these are the key steps. It all kicks off with brainstorming. And I mean structured brainstorming, not just throwing ideas at a wall. You come up with a bunch of potential solutions. And here's the key. They all have to be tied directly back to that root cause you already found. Then you pick the most promising ones and flush them out. Okay, now for what I think is the most important part, the pilot test. This is your small-scale trial run. You're testing your best ideas in a safe, controlled way. With maybe just one team or in one office for a week or so. This lets you prove it works without, breaking the entire company if something goes wrong. And once that pilot data comes back looking good, then you can go big and implement the solution for real. And of course, you don't just walk away. The last step is to verify with fresh data that you actually made the improvement you set out to make. So what does a successful improvement actually look like? Well, it can be a lot of different things. It could be about reducing waste and cutting costs. That's a big one. It could mean slashing the number of errors or defects that are messing with your quality. But it can also be about making things safer for your employees, or even just making a really frustrating process more satisfying for the people who have to do it every day. At the end of the day, it's all about creating more value. Now, it's really easy to get this next part confused. The improve phase and the control phase have very, very different jobs. See, the improve phase is all about putting the fix in place. But the control phase, that's what comes next. That's all about locking in those gains for the long haul. It's about building systems, creating documentation, and monitoring to make sure the process doesn't just slowly slide back into its old broken habits. First you fix it, then you make sure it stays fixed. So when you boil it all down, the journey from a broken process to a really effective one isn't just some random walk in the dark. It's a structured path. It takes you from deep analysis to real, tangible, measurable results. And that improve phase, it's the bridge that connects understanding a problem to actually, finally solving it. And that kind of leaves us with one final thought. We all have those processes, whether it's at work or even in our day-to-day lives, that are just begging for an upgrade. So think about it. What's one process in your world that's just waiting for a data-driven detective to come along and crack the case?